Hi there, my name's Laura and I'm the back half of Stellar Tandem, and this is stoked to be here. We are a record-breaking attempt to cycle around the world on a tandem bicycle in 2022, and as part of our preparations for this trip we're speaking to lots of people from the worlds of cycling and endurance. And today I'm joined by Charles or Charlie Condell, who is also known as Round the World Charlie, so who better to speak to? Can you tell us what you did essentially? How did you?
Crikey. Yeah, well, that's the big one. Well, in 2018, I set off just after my A-levels, and I was planning on doing a bit of a summer ride around Europe. I got to Istanbul and sort of just kept going, and then I managed to complete my sort of lap of the world in March 2019, before my 19th birthday.
Oh wow, that's absolutely amazing. And had you always ridden bicycles? Was it kind of a passion, or was this just a way to kind of see the world, as it were?
It was a bit of a combination. I've always loved bicycles, but I was mainly a bit of a mountain biker. I was quite new to the whole road bike scene. And sort of I was planning on doing a bit of a climbing trip. So I wanted to get a van and go in Europe and climb everywhere. That was my big thing at the time. But I realized for an 18-year-old to buy and insure a van, that wasn't going to be happening.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, the sort of the bike came into play. I figured, I'm quite fit. I did rowing and running and all sorts. So yeah, that came about. And about 2 weeks after my A-levels, I set off. No planning or anything. I bought the bike and went and just relied on sort of a base fitness and went from there.
Oh, amazing. So yeah, as a lot of people do, I suspect you kind of built up a lot of fitness and learned a lot along the way, along the road. So you
Yeah.
literally you weren't expecting to go past Istanbul when you set out.
Well, I feel like I usually try and bite off more than I can chew. So I said, yeah, it'll be fine. I'll see how far I can go. But very much Istanbul was quite a nice cut-off point because it's 4,000 Ks.
Yeah.
I try to do 1,000 Ks a week. And so therefore it's a month's ride, great summer holiday, lovely. So it'd been easy to get home. But after that, yeah, just kept on going. I know Europe fairly well from sort of, travels with the family. So it's quite a nice way to get started. I speak French and a bit of German. So it's that kind of thing where although it's a new concept and it's a new adventure, actually it's in a place that's very hospitable and I know quite well. So moving on from that, Turkey was the first Asian country, and I spent many years in Turkey. So once again, that was quite lovely. But beyond that, it was all new, and so that was then quite a big step because I had to take more transport rather than the bike to get into the rest of Asia.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, amazing. But so not only did you cycle around the world, but you also came back with a world record, I believe, didn't you? Um, are you still holding that as I believe as the youngest person to have cycled around the world?
yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. It was never officially done by Guinness. So I
Yeah.
got a yeah, you are, but then they had a whole problem with Strava, and they were a bit funny actually. At the very beginning, I asked them, what's going on? Can I get this record? And they said they weren't going to accept any more youth-related records. There was a young girl back in 2014, I think, and she sailed around the world by herself. She lived in the Netherlands or something like that. And then she blamed the whole thing on Guinness, and Guinness said, no, we're not having any more of that. And so I set off, and rather than buying their sort of official recorder, which I think is quite an expensive bit of kit, I said, I'll just put it all on Strava. And then
Mm.
when I got back, they said, well, where's your recordings? We'd love to give you the record. And of course, there weren't any. So I am the youngest. They have said it. However, they can't give me the official record.
Yeah, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, and the other kind of record holders like Jenny Graham and things like that have talked about having to like bring back like bags and bags of receipts and witness statements and all sorts. So I think there's quite a lot of admin to do it that way. But
Yeah,
it's
the whole
still
trip was documented on Instagram almost daily. And,
yes, I've had a look
posted.
through. It's yeah, it's mad the levels that they verify things at. But yeah, it's
Fair
you've
enough.
got.
Understand.
Yeah, I suppose so. But you've got, you've got an amazing Instagram feed, and yes, flicking through, looking through all the photos, and it looks like you had an amazing time. And it's interesting actually, because it seems like some days you were covering, significant amounts of mileage. You kind of really packed in the miles on some days, and then other days you seem to have still had the chance to make like the most of the culture, the people. I believe you went around the Taj Mahal, you've been sailing, and there's all sorts of things. I think there's some aerial yoga at one point. So how did you kind of manage that balance between a holiday and making progress, as it were?
Well, I think I was in quite a fortunate position in terms of time. I know when many people do it, it's trying to get time off for work and stuff, whereas I was out of school, I had no commitments. Was my goal. So that gave me basically 6 months, 180 days cycling at 100 miles a day. That gives me my 18,000 miles, which is the Guinness requirement, isn't it? And then that's 2 months of just enjoying myself, really. And so in the end, with various disruptances and sort of bits that went wrong, I think I actually ended up having more time off than that. So you have to make it up somewhere. I think my biggest day was 315 or 320 Ks. So that
Wow,
was a,
yeah,
that was a
it's a
day.
substantial day. Yes, especially when you're on the road all the time. It's enough as a
Yeah,
one-off, isn't it?
yeah. Well, fortunately, I was going to some really good friends in Kuala Lumpur, and it
Mm.
was the most horrible day. Really, really hilly, which I wasn't expecting, and this humongous tropical storm, sort of thunderstorm. And so yeah, I figured, you know what, I'll get up early and just do the double day. Got up at 6 and got in for midnight, and had a really tasty dinner.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Yeah, you must have been ravenous after all of that. So, yeah, so that's an epic ride, isn't it? Um, and then yeah, what was some of the highlights of kind of the experiences that you had and the people that you met and things along the way? As I say, you kind of you seem to have really got the most out of it.
Yeah, it's always one of the hardest questions, that along with what's your favorite country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard to sort of quantify. You meet
Yeah.
so many incredible people along the way. Certainly for me, India was just a real shock. It was a really new place. I'd never particularly done Asia before. I'd done Turkey, as I said, but that's still pretty European. So to head into India and just be dumped into that sort of world was a real shock to the system. However, yeah, I loved it. Everyone I met was so kind and wanted to know what was going on. People were, I said I was at the Taj Mahal, and
Yeah,
people were around me to take a photo of me with the Taj Mahal behind the camera. So it was a very weird experience being that sort of almost a celebrity. But everyone everywhere is incredibly kind, and you very quickly learn that there's pretty much no bad humans in the world. Everyone just wants to help, see what's going on, and be involved.
yeah, no, it's amazing. I think that's one of the things we're looking forward to the most is, is it getting these experiences and meeting people from all sorts of different places and cultures. But yeah, the one message I've got from everybody I spoke to is that yeah, there's a lot of humanity out there. So it will be very exciting to experience that. Um, and then yeah, your profile kind of skyrocketed, as it were. You had a incident in Australia, didn't you, with your bicycle? What happened there?
Did indeed. It actually got nicked. So first time I used a lock on the entire trip. I was about 3 days, I think, into Australia, and yeah, I just set off down. I chewed, but so bitten off more than I could chew the previous day, and ended up camping underneath these waterfalls, which turned out to be a very bad idea because they were full of crocodiles or alligators or something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there was a big snake involved and all sorts of stuff. So I figured, you know what, I want a hostel. I'm knackered, and I found this lovely little place with a pool and a bar and all sorts. Yeah, and then got up the next morning and the bike was gone. So I had
Oh,
to call the police and do all that stuff. And very quickly, the local radio got on board, and they were awesome and got me in, and then the papers. And then all the TV came, and it just sort of snowballed. I ended up doing, I think it was like 30 countries around the world. I was on one of their major news networks.
oh wow.
Yeah, either on purpose or not, they sort of copied the story. But I
Yeah,
can understand it, it's just some kid who's lost his bike. But some people, for some reason, people really enjoyed it. But recently, the good news is I've actually found it. Just yesterday, we announced that
oh
the bike is,
really? Oh my
yeah, and
goodness.
it's back in the UK.
Goodness, yeah, I bet you thought you'd never see that again.
I was convinced it was at the bottom of the lake somewhere. It's probably the most
Yeah.
super profile bike in Australia. um, so yeah, I'm dead chuffed to have sort of found it.
Yeah, I assume it is in Australia still.
Yeah, at the moment
Yeah.
it's with a friend of mine who's in the police.
Oh,
So yeah, we're gonna figure that one out.
wow, gosh, that is, yeah, that's a turn up for the books, isn't it? Um, Yeah, and you've obviously got like a lot of publicity off the back of that. Did that change your trip at all? Did it, did it make you more determined to go for the record, or what kind of impact did that have?
I think you've really nailed it there. There were certain points at which I was thinking, I've sunk. It's very expensive to do this kind of thing, so I've sunk a lot of money and a lot of time into this. Maybe I should actually slow down and just really enjoy it and see more places, rather than trying to hit that March deadline. But then with all that kind of exposure, people were like, you know what, he's going to do it, and I wanted to be the 18-year-old, so I pushed ahead with that. It probably made it easier in some ways. So after that, I only had to look after myself for 2 nights in Australia.
Mhm.
By the time I had someone offering me a bed and a meal, and then somewhere else 100 miles ahead, just kept on doing those 100-mile points, which was actually just that lovely sort of distance in Oz, because it's quite a hostile place and the
Yeah.
roads can be quite rough. They're good and they're consistent, but they're quite a gritty tarmac, which you find really does resist you on the bike.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was just incredible, and I had so many good experiences from people I met.
Yeah, yeah, and yet again, it just shows that, yeah, it's the humanity out there that makes it, isn't it? Um,
100%.
yeah. So, what was the kind of the gap you had? Because there was already I think a youngest, somebody claiming the youngest person to cycle around the world, wasn't there? So I
Yeah,
think it was,
Tom. Yeah,
yeah, think it was a relatively kind of, you kind of I can't remember how many days it was, but there wasn't kind of a massive amount in it, I don't think, was there?
no, well, in terms of the actual time sort of spent cycling,
Yeah.
yeah, we were about the same. I think he might have been a touch faster.
Mm.
It's one of those things. It's the constant question: do you go for the Mark Beaumont and
Yeah.
absolutely try and stick it out every single day, um, or do you just enjoy it? And I figured, you know what, I've got the time, so it's my gap year. It's my time to enjoy this.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think
definitely.
that he was a touch older when he finished,
Yeah.
so it was nice to beat him by that clarity. Yeah.
Fair enough. And if like Mark Beaumont's 80 days or 78 days was obviously a massive epic feat and had a massive budget as well. If if you could get that time now and that budget, would you go for something like that?
Said I was honestly ready. I was ready to get back on the bike the moment I got home and just head off again. I figured that was the fittest I was ever going to be. You can
Yeah.
do 200 k's without sweating it. That's quite nice. But yeah, he's still on another level. I think it's a lot of logistics and just a
Yeah,
lot of
definitely.
mental fortitude. So it's definitely in the book somewhere. I've got the bike there, and I've got some new contacts now. So yeah, never say never.
Oh, that's exciting. Definitely. And then, yeah, you talked about you managed to kind of get places to stay throughout Australia. Then, kind of before that, what was your balance between camping out and finding hostels or hotels? And how did you manage that? Was it just whatever came along, or did you kind of have to, because of budget reasons, try and stick to camping more? How did you manage where you stayed?
Well, it's a bit of a funny thing. In certain countries, it can actually be more expensive to try and camp in a site, and
Mm.
so then wild camping isn't sometimes an option. So actually, a hostel is the cheapest way. Especially, I found in Asia, camping just isn't done, and there's so many weird creepy crawlies, and you can get hostels so cheap it just doesn't make sense not to go for the hostel every night. Especially when I was there, it's sort of a bit of an off season, so it's quite nice. All the hostels were empty. Um, but then, say, in Europe, we all know quite well, yeah, camp the hell out of it because it really does save you a lot of cash.
Yeah.
For me, a real sort of restricting factor was I went super light with the whole thing. So I had the carbon bike and then the Apidura bags.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
the yeah,
yeah, the
frayed
light
bags
pack.
and things like that. Yeah,
But I just kept it with the one rear one and the front one. And so I had a full camping setup. I went like a big Agnes tent and all super light. I put my money into that because I figured, it's never wasted. I love gear.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it was a strange one. You have that, but then see, water is your limit. So the minute you're on a big touring bike, I found those guys, they can carry the water, they can carry the food, and for me that was usually the limiting factor. However, during the day, I was very happy that I'd had the lightweight setup. I cycled with some lads in New Zealand, and we had a great time. But they were on more of a traditional sort of setup, and my whole setup was actually lighter than one of their bikes. So
Yeah, I can imagine. I've seen some of the kind of world touring cyclists out there, and the amount of kit they've got strapped to their bikes is absolutely immense. I heard a podcast with a couple of Dutch ladies that had brought their own camping chairs as well, and you know, it's fine if you're going like 30 or 50 miles a day, but yeah, it's a lot of weight to carry, isn't it? So yeah, it's going to be a tricky balance, and we've got the challenge as well that we've got two people's stuff on one bicycle, so we're going to have to be extremely lightweight.
Does mount panniers in the middle somewhere, or are you stuck with the sort of traditional front and rear if you want them?
We will probably stick with the front and rear. So yeah, we've kind of we've done it like that before, and yeah, we have to be careful what we take, but we can fit most stuff in. And I suppose there's a bonus to you can share some stuff as well. Like obviously there's only one toolkit and things like that. We don't quite go as far as sharing toothbrushes, but
Cut
apart
them
from
all in
that,
half.
there's it'd be one stove, one tent and things.
Lovely.
So yeah, we probably will go with quite a traditional setup, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, on that note as well, what did you do? So yeah, obviously, if you're in a hostel, hotel, things like that, you're kind of charging devices up and things. What did you do otherwise? Did you just have to make do? Did you do power packs, a dynamo, solar panels, anything like that?
So I actually went for the dynamo.
Okay.
I went for a H plus Sun, I believe it was.
Mhm.
So I bought the bike, bought the frame, had all that, but I figured I know the carbon bike's very strong, and everyone was always asking, "Is that what's going to break?" I thought, no, it's going to be the wheels.
Yeah.
So I got myself some sort of custom wheels, decent spokes, 32 spoke, and then a nice Hope hub in the rear, and a H plus Sun dynamo in the front, and it was absolutely cracking. So I had a power pack as well. So what I do is during the day I'd only charge the power pack, and then in the evenings just recharge all my devices, bits and bobs. But it was very handy just to keep the GPS sort of topped up. I had a Wahoo, yeah, that kind of thing. It really did save me a few times actually.
Yeah, and it's it's one thing to have your mobile charged so you can check Facebook, but it actually from a safety point of view and charging up lights and things like that, it's something we're kind of weighing up the options of. We've got kind of different issues with having the tandem wheels need to be even stronger, so we could be looking at for like up to 48 spokes, and it's then the logistics getting a dyno hub in that. But yeah, no, it's interesting to know how other people have done it. Did you break any spokes on your trip, or did your wheel stay true?
Um, once or twice. The
Okay,
worst one
it's not too bad.
was in Turkey.
Mhm.
I was going along the Black Sea, and you have some amazing roads along there, and these really long tunnels, sort of cutting off the mountains. And coming out of one of them, I was on a lovely brand new bit of tunnel road, and went back onto the old road, and there was an inch difference between the two bits of tarmac, just completely squared off.
Oh.
And yeah, I hit that. I think I was doing about 90 k's an hour coming out of this tunnel. And yeah, I wasn't too happy about that one.
No, I can imagine. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
But I was planning on taking spares, but they're so heavy. And
Mm.
so I was like, and the wheels were plenty strong enough. So I just got into the next town. And yeah, I made this bike to be universal. So although it's a race bike, it's all very standard parts and very replaceable. Which is another reason I didn't go for disc brakes.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, I probably could have. I know lots of people do. And I've worked in a bike shop now. They don't tend to go wrong. So yeah, it's probably maybe one thing I would change.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. And were you pretty handy with bicycle kind of like mechanics and maintenance beforehand? Had you kind of fixed a lot of your own bikes, or was that something you learnt on the road as well?
Yeah, I think I was pretty handy, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, I had all my own little tools, and I don't like paying for workshop hours. It's expensive, isn't it, to send your bike in? So you might as well. I'd rather put the money into tools myself, and do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lucky because Steve's really handy with the bike. There's not a lot that he can't fix on the road, but I've heard other people do it completely the opposite way, and they've kind of gone with minimal tooling and nothing, and they just wing it to the next bike shop and get everything fixed there. But yeah, it's
But bikes, they're very simple. There's not a lot that can go wrong, and if it does go wrong, it's probably just an Allen key somewhere.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's usually a bit of tweaking, and if you know what you're doing, you can normally get away with it. Fabulous. And then as you were obviously you said you hadn't kind of planned it officially, you didn't set out with a kind of a route uploaded on your Wahoo or anything. How did you choose where to go? Did you just pick a direction? I've heard of some people that set off and they literally just followed a compass kind of thing, as basic as that, and just picked the road that was going in the right direction. But yeah, how did you plan how to move on to the next place, essentially?
I wasn't quite that radical. Good people. No, yeah, as I said, I didn't really plan it massively. I knew roughly what line I was going to take in terms of, everyone's got the classic thing: do I go for the Russian side or down through Iran, or there's that whole sort of debate.
Yeah.
So I knew my first goal point was going to be Istanbul, and so I drew a pretty straight line through there, and I know the Alps. I wanted to cross off a few bits from a list, so I just followed that. And then on a smaller scale, day to days, wake up in the morning or check the previous evening and look where's 100 miles away on the map. And so that was usually my goal: to do 100 miles, see how I feel, see what time it is, because depending on conditions and mountains and all that, sometimes you have it done by lunch, and sometimes really not.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but yeah, you just sort of make it up as you go along. I was determined to try and stick to small roads, not a fan of big busy roads at all. So yeah, that was my main sort of goal, and then go and see some beautiful places.
Yeah, fantastic. And how did you kind of deal with the middle section, as it were, getting through the Middle East? Because I assume when you went as well, it's probably still not possible for people from the UK to get visas into like Iran, for example.
Yeah,
Which
well,
route did you take?
I actually hadn't a visa just before I left. I was ready to go, and then Mr. Trump pulled out of a nuclear deal with Iran, and magically, all the travelers' visas at that point seemed to vanish. So yeah, I had to take a plane over into India. I was looking at getting to Pakistan, but at that point there'd been a load of bombings, and I don't think my mum felt particularly felt great about that one. So yeah, I sort of negotiated to get into India. I went into Ahmedabad. So yeah, I knew at the end of the day, it's just about getting the miles in, really. The
Yeah.
usual places will still be there in a few years' time, so I'll definitely be going back. Um, I was going for the miles, and I wasn't too fussed either about the whole staying within a few degrees. So there's the classic thing: you've got a very straight line.
Yeah.
I'd be told that they weren't so fussed about that one, so it was just getting the miles in, keep going in the same direction, goody. So yeah, landed in a place called Ahmedabad, and then went up through Jaipur and Delhi and into Nepal.
Okay, very good. Yeah, yeah. I think we'll be doing something similar. Where did you leave from in Europe? Where was your stopping point?
I was in Tbilisi in Georgia.
Tbilisi, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's what we're looking at. So yeah, and then you
yeah. I tried to get
skip over.
into Azerbaijan. I cycled through the desert and got to the border, and they asked me, "Where's your visa?" I went, "What?" Because I'm actually not sure visa. I hadn't done any of that stuff either. And so, yeah, I was a bit buggered there. I'd cycled 60 miles through the desert, and I was knackered.
Oh,
Yeah,
no. And you just
that
have to
was
turn around and go
long.
back. Oh,
Yeah,
what a nightmare. Oh, God.
yeah. But that's my fault for not checking I needed. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I bet there was a lot of pros to kind of blagging it along the way as you were. I bet you get to see a lot of interesting places, and you get experiences that you wouldn't normally have. And I think that's something that we might kind of in some ways miss on our trip, that we won't necessarily have time to slow down and go back again. But I think we'll just view it as a massive recce mission of where we'd like to go back and spend more time in the future. And yeah, I think I will ask the cheesy question of where was there a favorite place or a highlight, or was it just seeing all the different places that made it?
Well, yeah, everywhere's different. There's reasons that certain places are gap year central. So I loved New Zealand, I loved Australia, but that's sort of, I think it's almost wimping out a bit. Those very easy countries. In terms of, for me, going through Asia is a bit more radical. But then again, Thailand is full. The whole of Southeast Asia is full of Westerners, and it's all very normal, really. So I'd probably make India the weirdest place, and then Nepal was sort of like India, but just a lot quieter, a lot more chilled out, which was quite nice, except for the roads along. So I went to, where did I go to? Crikey, Pokhara. Lovely place, and it had a beautiful lake, but the road from Kathmandu to Pokhara was probably the hairiest road I've ever been on.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, and that was going to be the next question. Was there anywhere that was particularly tough and you wouldn't go back to, for whether it be the roads or it just wasn't your sort of place? Was there anywhere that you just wanted over and done with?
Pretty Serbia, which is a bit of a
Okay.
funny one. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it. I had 4 days there, and from the moment I entered, you can immediately tell it's not part of Europe anymore, and so the roads just go, right downhill. And I feel like it's probably a bit of a tough life there. It's just nowhere near as welcoming. People really do stare at you. I felt almost a bit scared at times. You're a real outsider. But then again, I still met some lovely people. I was still invited into people's homes, and so yeah, it was a tougher place, but I think it's just because I've been spoiled up until that point with such loveliness.
Yeah, a bit of a
Uh,
culture shock.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, just bring it back. You were talking about speed earlier, and I think there's no right or wrong way to do it because you could go as slow as you want and still not see everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a good middle ground. That's where a bike is amazing because you can travel that distance, 200 kilometers a day and not be too fast, and you've really covered some distance there whilst doing it at a lovely pace.
Yeah, there's I think there really is something about seeing places at the speed of a bicycle and seeing the world at the speed of a bicycle. I think that's going to be quite mind-blowing. We were
Mm.
lucky enough to manage to do Land's End to John O'Groats last summer on the bike, and even seeing the UK at the speed of the bicycle and seeing, the countryside change around you it's pretty epic. So yeah, the whole world's going to be absolutely mind-blowing, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's next on my list. I've really not done the UK at all. It's terrible. We've camped as a family, but I feel like I've barely touched the north.
Oh
So
goodness, yeah, you've got to go to Scotland. Just watch out for the
that's the
midges.
plan. Yeah. Oh yeah. Get the
That
head
was,
net on.
oh, don't. They were awful. But yeah, no, I could highly recommend it. And yeah, if you want a lead jog route, I've got one.
Well, yeah, I'll take that one.
Amazing. And then the other big thing that's always on a cyclist's mind is food. Did you have any staples along the way? Were you eating out, cooking? Was it all pasta and rice, or was there any sort of food that particularly kind of kept you going?
Well, the one that always stands out is I pretty much lived off of the gas station pies in Australia. Uh, yeah, lots and lots of pies. The cycling's great because it means you can eat whatever the hell you want,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, you're really not going to put anything on. Yeah, you count it all as good calories. In India, it was actually quite new for me, so I've never been veggie, never done any of that, but I went full veggie. I figured the meat was one thing that was actually going to make me ill because the rest of it is quite spicy and cooked and stuff.
Yeah,
And so I actually stayed pretty good in India. But that was a whole new thing, was going full veggie and enjoying that. At the same time, it's very easy though, because obviously it's a very large part of the population that lives that way of life.
yeah,
So it was a very easy thing to do. Yeah, besides that, food can be probably one of the most expensive parts. It is pretty much your only outgoing, isn't it, once you're on the road, if you camp all the time. So I think it's important to get a good meal in. You can't just eat pasta and tomatoes all the time. So I certainly never sacrificed on that. But good food doesn't have to be expensive. I think it's just
no,
however creative you are.
yeah. And
Yeah.
did you have a stove? Were you cooking along the way?
Yeah. I had a Primus Omni Fuel.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that one if you're looking. Yeah, very easy because yeah, it's all petrol. Had my little aluminium sort of tin cans, and yeah, it was all very handy. They probably didn't get used as much as they should have,
Mhm.
but very nice for a cup of tea. One of my favorite things to do, and ended up
Oh
sort of
goodness,
doing
yeah.
a little cup of tea in the most beautiful spot I could find. So yeah, that was always nice.
Yeah, I struggle to get going in the morning without a cup of tea, so I'm thinking a stove might be the way forward. And yeah, cups of tea aren't, you don't get them the same around the world, do you? And from traveling before, there's something about a British cup of tea that's
Oh, it's
yeah.
always cracking. Yeah, but I could probably recommend actually you could even lose that weight though. It's bulky and they're delicate and fuel is heavy. So you can very easily get away without it, I think. Yeah, everywhere you go will offer you a hot meal, and especially once you're into Asia, it's all very cheap, so you'll
Yeah,
eat out anyway.
yeah,
Just survive on sandwiches in Europe, really. You'll get away with that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then are you doing the US back into America?
Yeah, so yeah, we're yeah, crossing the US essentially
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
plan
Well, in that case, cheapest, best, fattiest food in the world is absolutely awesome. Uh,
here.
Yeah, I was in IHOP and it was a special, so I spent $1 and they gave me the biggest stack of pancakes I've ever had. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't think food will be an issue in the US, but yeah, there's a lot to look forward to, definitely. And then can I ask you what you are doing now? Because obviously that was your kind of kind of gap year, but I think it's different from the way most people do it. And it's been a crazy time recently, but what are you up to at the moment?
Well, right now I'm back into Swansea. I'm sorry, into university. I'm doing mechanical engineering at Swansea.
Oh,
I actually had a second gap year. Yeah, I took a second year off. I got back and I was going to go to uni, and then I went, you know what? No, I couldn't. So I bought a motorbike, got my bike license, and set off down Africa. And so I was going to try and basically do all the places I hadn't been on the bicycle, but on motorbike. Sadly, that was stopped in Central America by COVID. But I got a good 6 months out of that trip, actually. That was great fun.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So yeah, you certainly kind of maxed the adventures out. And I think, yeah, it's, it's an admirable thing to do. Amazing.
Yeah, it was good crack.
Fantastic. And have you got any kind of top tips or anything that you would suggest or recommend to anybody, or particularly like for our trip, for example?
Crikey. Well, you guys are doing it slightly differently.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
the benefits of the tandem, obviously, you've got sort of twice the power for the same amount of aero. So that's very cool. I reckon on the flats, you should be absolutely zooming.
Yeah.
For me, I really base it around lightweights, minimal, lightest I could possibly do. After all my kit got nicked in Australia, I got the new bike, but I didn't put anything else in my new rear bag. I just kept that super light, so I only had stuff in the front. That's probably the lightest long distance setup I think anyone's ever had. But that was absolutely cracking. My best memories are with a light bike, zooming over hills, overtaking people, and actually not feeling knackered everywhere I went, and being able to cover some distance.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much my biggest goal, or my biggest piece of advice. That and just you got to enjoy it, haven't you?
Yeah,
Chill.
definitely.
Don't put any pressure on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's amazing. And since you've come back, and obviously your story did get a bit of publicity along the way, have you heard of anybody that you've inspired to, either go traveling on the bicycle or kind of follow their own adventures, or go on kind of a crazy gap year or anything like that?
Well, I've been very lucky actually. People they've texted and they've Instagrammed, and people want advice. So it's really lovely that people feel like they can get in touch, and they're more than welcome to. I feel like people, especially at the moment, they're looking forward to a big old adventure. People need something to look forward to. So it's been actually quite interesting. Past month, I probably had a record number of people asking me, what's going on, what can I do, this, that, and the other since the trip. So yeah, it's great to know that I'm there for people.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And that's something, we'd really like to think as well, that if we can, get a few videos, podcasts, whatever out of it as well, and kind of inspire some other people to kind of follow their own adventures. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the way around the world, but I think that's an amazing thing to do, isn't it? To give people ideas, confidence and inspiration. So yeah, that's amazing.
Al Humphreys, I love his
yeah.
He's very good at sort of keeping it local, keeping it small, his micro adventures. So
yeah, no,
stuff.
he's an amazing inspiration, isn't he? And yeah, he's all his little podcasts and newsletters and things like that are a fantastic resource too. So amazing. Right. So just before we finish off, I have got some tandem trivia for you. Have you ever ridden a tandem?
Once, yeah, with a mate. I was the front half, and it was an immense experience. Great crack, actually. Yeah.
Amazing. And if you could ride a tandem and you could have anybody else, alive, dead, famous, friends, whoever, on your tandem with you, who would you have?
Crikey. Pretty logically, I've got a mate, Josh, and he's going for sort of GB cycling, so he's a bit of a powerhouse. He'd be good to have on the back end, I think.
Yeah.
Get us over those hills. For a bit of good chat. Oh, you probably have to have some kind of comedian, wouldn't you? Just making all sorts of sarky remarks. I wouldn't mind a bit of Peter Kay, actually. But,
Yeah.
he's got a unit to have on the back of your bike, so...
Yeah, you'd have to balance that up a bit, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
did.
Great question, though, yeah. That's the thought provoker.
No, that's amazing. And then we kind of say we're joined by the frame on the tandem. Is there anything when you're on the bike, is there anything you're joined by the frame to that you can't do without, be it like a food item or a bit of kit, or what's, you know, or like a little luxury or something like that? What would you always take with you when you're out bicycle touring?
Food, yeah. Yeah, Happy Dura does a great little, if you're a climber, you'll know it's a chalk bag, sort of like a little
Yeah.
grab bag. And yeah, you just whack it on the front. It's the biggest rip off in the world, but I got one of them constantly filled with all the little sugary gummy sweets. And yeah, that's just quite a nice little thing to keep you ticking over. It's a funny one. Once you've got your gear, then it seems so pure. You don't need anything, do you? You just keep on riding. Everything else you're taking is purely for the evenings. Like in terms of, yeah, I had my one set of cycling gear. I had 2 pairs of socks, went for that luxury, and then just a pair of board shorts and a t-shirt. So I made sure I just didn't take anything, because I suppose it's hard to say I had something to want. Yeah.
But no, yeah, food's definitely a good one, and I'm lucky. I've got the nose bag on the tandem that's right in front of me, so I've got that, you know, easy access to that, and I have to try not to rustle too loudly sometimes, otherwise Steve knows that I'm in it and getting the sweets out.
Legs crossed.
Yes, amazing. And then lastly, why should we ride a tandem around the world?
Oh, crikey. For every reason imaginable. To go and see somewhere new. You know what? We've all earned it with COVID. Go and enjoy yourself. For the people, for the scenery, yeah, for the stuff you don't know you're missing out on yet, is probably the best one.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that as well. The stuff you don't know you're missing out on. Fantastic. You've been absolutely fab. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your amazing trip. And it sounds like there might be some more exciting adventures in the pipeline as well. So I'll sure to be keeping watch out for those. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, best of luck for the future.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So it's been great to hear from Charlie there and his amazing adventure. I hope you've enjoyed listening as well. We've got some amazing more guests coming up in the next few weeks and months. So I hope you can listen along to those as well. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe on whichever podcast listening site you are using. And if you could like and comment as well, or any suggestions, good or bad, would be very much appreciated, because it really helps with our ratings as well. And otherwise, yeah, see you next time. Bye.